Well, welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us today to learn more about nonprofit organizations accepting cryptocurrency as a charitable donation. Today, our presenters will be Nathan Gurr, who is a Web3 researcher for Collective Shift, a research firm based in Melbourne, Australia. This focus in crypto leans towards non-fungible tokens, or NFTs, which we'll learn more about, and their ability to be fundraising and operating tokens for the next generation of startups. Since August of 2020, he's been applying his 7-year experience and valuation techniques to crypto organizations and mapping the entire crypto industry through research community he founded on Discord called Crypto Cartography. Also with us today is Alex Wilson, who's the co-founder of The Giving Block, a Shift4 company that makes cryptocurrency fundraising easy for nonprofits. With a background in management consulting, Alex has worked with Fortune 500 companies to develop strategies around emerging technologies like AI, IoT, that's Internet of Things, blockchain, and cryptocurrency. He's now turned his attention to the nonprofit world. We're grateful for that, where he equips nonprofits to accept cryptocurrency donations and build fundraising programs. Also with us is Tom Hillebrecht, who's a business development manager at PBO Advisory Group. With over 20 years of banking and finance experience, Tom knows currency. Tom delivers strategic business consulting, outsourced accounting services, and operational support to startups, emerging public, private organizations, government, and nonprofit organizations. During his career, Tom has worked with early stage, middle market, and Fortune 500 companies in a variety of industries, including manufacturing, wholesale, and distribution. And today, your humble moderator, me, Rick Dahlside, is a consultant CFO with PBO Advisory Group as well. And I have the privilege of serving the nonprofit sector. I also get to teach nonprofit financial management at the University of San Diego. So you might be wondering, who are these PBO folks, this PBO Advisory Group? Well, what we do is we give you access to highly skilled finance, accounting, human resources, and business consulting talent. We're headquartered in San Diego, and we've got more than 60 professionals serving clients throughout California, and mostly in Southern California. So without further ado, let's move on, since we had that nice little commercial break. So welcome again. First, just a couple of administrative matters to mention. So we are recording the presentation, so it will be made available in the slide deck as well. So please enter your questions as they come up in the chat, and we'll make sure to get those asked and answered. We'll also have a question and answer period at the end. So if you want to wait till the end, fine. You won't need to take copious notes other than things that are most of interest to you, because the slide deck will be available. And the other important thing is what we're going to be talking today, and as it relates to whether or not you should hold or invest in cryptocurrency, that is really outside the scope of this webinar. We're focused on nonprofits accepting cryptocurrency as a charitable donation and quickly converting it to cash and putting it to work. Next slide, please. And let's go to the agenda. Yeah, so here's just a quick peek at the agenda for today that our subject matters will be covering. We're going to talk about who it's for, why, kind of some of the myths and myth busters that are out there regarding cryptocurrency. And we're going to learn some interesting topics or interesting terms in the cryptocurrency world that we're hearing today. Web3, NFT, what does this mean? What is a cryptocurrency? We're going to learn from that as well. At the end, we're going to hear more from Alex on the practical guidance for nonprofits. So next slide, please. So when examining who is a good nonprofit candidate, it's important that the organization have a digital mindset. It's like, Rick, what do you mean by a digital mindset? Well, that means that you have this mindset that your website is easily updated. You use a good website. It's mobile friendly. You're thinking about the end user experience. Did you know there's actually some awards that organizations get for their website design, and those that are really well known are published? If you look up in Google best nonprofit websites, one of those that shows up is Make-A-Wish. Many have heard of that. And guess what? They take cryptocurrency as a donation. And then this idea of having a digital first strategy, you see that in the listing there. It just means that there's an organization that the business is striving toward a digital environment. And it's essential to note right away that digital first culture is not focused on eliminating traditional storage mediums. It's just meant to enhance and make it more user friendly. And it's also important to point out that accepting cryptocurrency, it's not just another revenue stream. It also represents an expansion of generational giving, which that's a key component to development directors today. How do we expand the generational giving and cross other generations to give? And in its effect, it's going upstream to those younger generations for more meaningful gifts. So creating new donor experiences is also a factor in measuring if a nonprofit is a good experience. Now, I don't know about you, but it seems to me that personally, I'd rather have an experience of something rather than just a tchotchke or some kind of a token gift to remind me of something that I did, like something I have to save and put on a shelf. It's a meaningful mental exercise to remember something rather than simply a trinket. And finally, what I want to say on this slide, it's important to consider the technology you will use to accept cryptocurrency donations. And this is referred to in Parlor as a tech stack, right? But or what vendors you might use to process your cryptocurrency donations. So if you're thinking that you agree that your organization is a good candidate or might be a good candidate with a little bit of work, let's take a look at some of the reasons why an organization would want to take cryptocurrency. Next slide, please. So the answer to the question of why is really quite short. It's because it's the future. Folks, this is being driven by younger generations, which by definition is the future. So it's best to get on to that as soon as you can. And that's exciting because to hear more about that, I'm going to toss it over to my colleague, Tom, who knows a thing about the younger generation. Tom, and next slide, please. Tom, you're on mute.
Hi, everyone. Am I unmuted? Sorry about that, folks. Tom Hillebrecht here with PBO Advisory. Rick, thanks for the handoff. Really to dovetail on what Rick said earlier is the demographics really support the move to cryptocurrency acceptance. These are big mega trends that are happening, and we have some stats that we found and have researched that support that. It's really where younger people are storing their wealth. It's quite interesting that many donors only are donating via crypto. And in fact, some stats to get more quantitative is we found that 83% of millennial millionaires own cryptocurrency, which is quite a large percentage. And a third of millennial millionaires have about 3/4 of their wealth in cryptocurrency. So those are kind of staggering numbers, at least they were to me when I first saw those. Next slide, please. And that really is pretty much driving the broader category of non-cash giving. Non-cash giving is, as we found, the fastest growing segment of giving in general. It's really becoming the default setting and the way people really want to give more broadly, and specifically the younger generation. Our initial research found that non-cash gifts, well, they tend to be larger, but we found them to be about the average of $10,000. So we're not talking about $100, $200 increments here or checks. We're talking about 10 grand. And that number even went higher when we found out via the Giving Block, Alex's firm, that that number is even higher. The average non-cash gift size is actually more in the $12,000 to $13,000 range. So that's a big number, something to be mindful of. We also found a study via professor at Texas Tech University who tracks nonprofits and does this type of work. He found via his research that nonprofits that accept non-cash donations grew at over a 50% higher rate than those that did not. So that's more quantitative support for non-cash giving and an incentive to do just that. Moreover, we've really got a hockey stick type growth going in crypto donations. If you look at about 3 years ago in 2019, there was about 200 million in crypto that was donated. Fast forward just a couple of years, and it's a 5x boost all the way up to 1 billion of crypto was donated in 2021. 1 billion of crypto was donated in 2021. Next slide, please. And so more broadly, the cryptocurrency market size, it was 1 trillion quite recently. It's now up to a $2 trillion market cap. For some context, that's right up there with the very biggest market cap sizes of the biggest companies in the world. For context, Amazon's market cap is about 1.4 trillion. Apple, their market cap is, I think, like 2.5, 2.6 trillion. So that's very large, and it's also growing, by the way. More numbers, about 300 million people worldwide own cryptocurrency. I think, what are there, 8 billion people in the world, so it's at 3-4%, something like that. More context is that 14% of US adults own cryptocurrency. So what do we have, 350 million in the US? What is that, about 65 million people, something like that? Rick, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly interrupt, Tom. I have an updated number on the number of people that own cryptocurrency. It's now 300,000,001. As I jumped in that pool, I now own cryptocurrency. But
sorry, Rick. Sorry.
Kidding aside, Tom, what about the claims that the cryptocurrency is for gangsters and that trading cryptocurrency uses too much energy?
Right. Yeah, and that's a good dovetail into the next slide, where we found, given our research, that there's a myth that crypto, because it's new, because it's associated maybe with young people, maybe because it's not a lot known about it, so people are maybe skeptical. They think it's maybe associated with illicit activities. Well, the fact of the matter is that cash donations are much more likely to be used in illicit activities than non-cash. And as an ex-banker with a banking background, I know, and I've kind of been exposed to this, that nefarious people, they like cash. You can launder it, you can move it around, you can engage in a lot of kind of malfeasance and nefarious activities. With crypto, however, it's very transparent. It has a public audit trail, unlike cash. So that's something to be mindful of. The other kind of myth that's out there is that crypto is environmentally insensitive, that it runs counter to some ESG issues. But really, mining for crypto is considered to be much more efficient than mining for gold, and we've been doing that for ages. Really, the other thing is that 60% of the energy that's used to mine for crypto is of the sustainable sort. So there are a couple of things to consider there when people think that they may run counter to ESG concerns. Really, the energy consumption that secures the network, it's just helping to add transactions. It's really not using a lot more energy.
Well, Tom, those are certainly fascinating details. And now that we've whetted everybody's appetite around cryptocurrency and some of the terminology, let's turn our attention to learning a little bit about that terminology and how it works. Nathan, what do you have for us this morning?
Yes, and before I get into three terminology or three phrases we're going to learn today, Tom, your point on the high check size of crypto donations being above 10 grand, it makes a lot of sense. We've got a unit bias for wealthy crypto people. $1,000 is still a lot of money to them, but if you say 0.3 of an Ethereum token, which is $3,000, so 0.3 is 1,000, they're far more willing to give cryptocurrency than cash. They think crypto is very cheap, even though there's definitely a unit bias there. So it's very interesting. I think they would part with their crypto more easily than they would part with their cash because they're crypto rich. So, but moving on into terminology, today we're going to learn three pieces of terminology today: blockchain, Web3, and then also digital assets and different types of tokens. Now, when you hear blockchain, I want you to think distributed ledger or public database, and those are the synonyms that I want you to remember. I'm an accountant, a CPA by practice, so for me, the blockchain is like a holy grail. We're able to have a shared database where humans don't have to reconcile databases in a manual way. So for accountants, this is easily the future, and the big four accounting firms are already building, they already have their accounting departments. And then this slide here is just to show you that every blockchain that we have is trying to build a financial ecosystem on top of it. And the next slide will show that as well. Bitcoin, we won't get into the technicalities of different blockchains right now, but the Bitcoin blockchains, its technological specifications like block size, block time, will not facilitate global commerce. Global commerce does millions and billions of transactions. That blockchain will not be able to handle it. So very smart software developers started to build other blockchains, in 2015, 16, 17, and all the way through to today, that can scale to global commerce. The most popular blockchains right now, outside of Bitcoin, which is pretty much used now for just payment sending of Bitcoin, we have Ethereum, Solana, Avalanche. Energy Web Chain is a little bit smaller, but Ethereum, Solana, Avalanche, and then there's a few other as well. These are all what we call general purpose blockchains. And if we go to the next slide, here is our blockchain technology stack. The real message here is that applications are built on top of blockchains. And for us as consumers, we really care about layer one on the right-hand side visual, which are smart contract platforms or the underlying blockchains. Most of what you will see right now is Ethereum or Solana, and that's where pretty much a lot of the activity is happening. So on top of, say, Ethereum, the blockchain, if we skip layer 2 and layer 3, we'll go up to layer 4, the application layer. That is where consumers live. This is where general applications are built like Google, Amazon, Gmail, front-end consumer-facing applications. And this is where if you're a founder or an entrepreneur, instead of raising a Series A or a Series Seed, which you would traditionally do when you're starting a startup, you'd raise token funding and fund your business through tokens and build a business on top of one of these blockchains. So this is a really good visual for understanding the blockchain technology stack. And we really are building a decentralized system that's running in tandem to the traditional centralized system. And then as the people like myself in the crypto world, we are trying to get people to come over to the decentralized world. So on to the next slide. Now, the three major types of digital assets that are out there that, charitable organizations want to be able to receive. They are fungible tokens, non-fungible tokens, and then stable coins. Your fungible tokens are your vanilla tokens that are out there. I've given three real world examples here. Is a fungible token is similar to a stock, an equity stock, where if you and I have shares of Tesla, I'd be happy to take your share of Tesla and you can have my share of Tesla, because the rights, the financial and non-financial rights are the same to owning that piece of equity. Now, a non-fungible token, which has been all the rage in 2021, you can think of fungible tokens related to DeFi, decentralized finance, and then non-fungible tokens related to pretty much all of the creative aspects in the world, your art, your music, your videos. Those things are all going to be non-fungible tokens. And when I think of NFTs, all I think of is token plus data. All we're doing when we're taking a fungible token to create a non-fungible token is we're adding a piece of unique data that's non-transferable, it's non-fungible. And my example here is a Tesla car. If you and I both get Tesla cars, the second we drive off the lot, I'm not going to take your car. And we can't just swap it for my car. My car might have a few scratches, tires might not be as good. They are fundamentally different assets, and they're not interchangeable, they're non-fungible. So those are two sets of assets right now. Mostly, I'd assume a lot of the giving for charity organizations right now is in the fungible tokens. But I could see a time in the future when non-fungible tokens, you would want to accept those and have a standard operating procedure for doing something with those NFTs that people don't want or they want to donate. And then the third piece of digital assets, or the third major type, is stable coins. We haven't completely built a new system yet. We've built a lot of tokens that are pegged to national currencies, and the biggest one is pegged, or the largest stable coins are pegged to the US dollar. Examples of these are USDC, USDT, which is also called Tether, and then there's the third one is DAI, and these are stable coins. If you buy one USDC, it will always be valued at $1 US. So this is a great way that I tell people that if you don't want to buy highly volatile crypto assets, like Bitcoin, Ethereum, other altcoins, then just buy stablecoins. Set up your Web3 wallet and just get a few stablecoins into your wallet so that you're there and you're ready, you understand the process, but you're still just exposed to US dollars or to British pounds or to whatever national currency that you want to be exposed to. So those are the three major types of digital assets. I assume most of the funding's for fungible tokens and stablecoins at the moment. And I would just start to think about non-fungible tokens. They'd be a little bit harder to accept and then dispose of because you'd have to come up with a value for them. But non-fungible tokens are going to proliferate every industry, in my opinion. So you might as well be open to receiving them. On to the next slide. Now, 2 quick slides on the onboarding of funds to the blockchain, and then we're going to get into Web3 really quickly. The onboarding of funds to the blockchain is still a bit of a process, and it's a hassle. To get funds to the blockchain, we have to go from our bank to a central crypto exchange, which is KYC required. So know your customer, anti-money laundering regulations are there. And then from our central crypto exchange, we send it actually to the blockchain. Now, if we go to the next slide, all I've done is replace blockchain on the right-hand side with our Web3 wallet. To connect to blockchains and to connect to applications built on blockchains, if we remember our tech stack, we use what's called a Web3 wallet. So we will take, here, my example is down the bottom. I'm with Schools First Credit Union here in California. I move money from my Schools First Credit Union to Coinbase, and then I send it from Coinbase over to MetaMask. So as a charitable organization, you should be willing and ready to accept cryptocurrencies from central exchanges like Coinbase or from MetaMask. And for the end user, it's the same process. You input the currency, you put in the send to address, and you press send. So whether it's coming from a central exchange or from a Web3 wallet, same process for the user. But that's pretty much the monetary flow at the moment for a consumer. It is from your bank to a central exchange over to your Web3 wallet. And I've got an example down the bottom in the bottom right-hand corner, and it's called MetaMask, which is probably the most well-known Web3 wallet that's out there. Probably the second most well-known wallet is the Coinbase wallet, which Coinbase has a central exchange, and then they've also built a Web3 wallet as well. So for users that just want to stay with Coinbase, it's actually a pretty good user experience. Coinbase has the best user experience in all of crypto, in my opinion. Next slide. I believe this is the last for me today. We're talking Web 2 versus Web 3. And when we talk about Web 3, what is it? It's one of those buzzwords from 2021. And this is probably the best visual that I've ever seen for what is Web 3. Web 1 back in the day, when say we were attaching our web search, we were logging into say the New York Times back in 2001, 2002, we would just log in with a username and password, and we would pretty much be able to just read content. So down the bottom, the user capabilities is read only. With Web 2.0, we were able to create profiles and across many different applications. So here we had sign in with Google, with Facebook, with Twitter, and then the capabilities are reading and also writing, because I could produce content to Facebook, to Twitter, and to Google. And now in the Web 3 world, we are doing away with email addresses and passwords, and we are setting up wallets that live on the blockchain that require a seed phrase to get into them. We won't get into the technicalities of getting into a Web3 wallet, but the user capabilities now are read, write, and also own. If we take my New York Times example, I can envision a future where online publications allow you to produce content to the website, but then you still own that content because it came from your wallet. You created it. It doesn't just go straight to the owners of a company anymore. So And then additionally, Web3 is also with decentralized data storage, rather. In Web2, there's centralized data storage. So this whole concept of Web3 kind of encapsulates everything else that we just talked about. We have a blockchain technology stack where new entrepreneurs are building applications on top of blockchains. And for your general user to access those applications, they need a Web3 wallet like Coinbase Wallet or MetaMask to access those. Email addresses are going away, in my humble opinion, and we are going to be building messaging and communication services for our Web3 wallets in the future. And those are pretty much the three pieces of terminology, and that's kind of where I'll end today. We just talked about blockchains in general, distributed ledgers, public databases, three different types of digital assets, and then also just the general concept of Web3 and how that's pretty much my identity in the future. And if you want to receive crypto donations, you're going to want to receive it from Web3 wallets and the digital identities behind those Web3 wallets.
Well, thank you, Nathan. I've got a question that came in. Is it fair to say we're moving toward more Web3 and that's where much of the future digital world will be?
In my opinion, yes. What I'm seeing, I track a lot of, you know, the young ladies and gentlemen coming out of college. And if you were an entrepreneur back in the day, you'd incorporate a company out of Delaware and you'd raise a convertible note, Series C, Series A. That was the best practices in the United States, and that's changing nowadays. The question is, should I just go straight to a token raise? You know, should I just build a Web3 application and skip going and building a Web2 application on centralized databases? And that general shift is happening slowly over time. Us in crypto want it to happen faster, but I do think we need a new generation, or not new generations, but multiple years of new founders coming out of college for the next 5 or 10 years. And yeah, I think there'll be less Delaware C Corps being started and more crypto startups being started.
Are you noticing any particular industries that are at the forefront of this early adoption?
Yes, finance for sure. DeFi, decentralized finance, was the easy one. That was in 2020 when we really, you know, the rest of the world heard about it. And then in 2021, it was NFTs. And now a lot of people just think about JPEGs and pictures of monkeys when they think about NFTs, and go a little bit on that. NFTs are simply tokens with distinct data attached to them. So that opens up a world of possibilities. What type of data is going to live with that NFT token? In my opinion, the house that I buy in 5 or 10 years will probably be an NFT. We're going to attach all of the information that's related to that mortgage, and it's just going to be the data related to a token. So to answer your question, for non-fungibles, it's artwork, music. People are really interested in real estate, but the big one right now is artwork, and then it's going to go into other industries. Yeah.
It's fascinating. Thank you for going over those basics with us. It seems like the more we hear these unique terms, these newly invented terms, blockchain, cryptocurrency, wallet, Web3, the more it starts to make sense. And to help us make sense of how to accept and convert cryptocurrency to cash for the nonprofit, we're going to turn it over to Alex Wilson to fill us in on that. Alex?
Hey guys, thanks for having me today. Great job so far, guys. So yeah, my name's Alex. I'm one of the 2 co-founders of the Giving Block, as the guy said in the beginning. So a couple quick case studies I can hit on. You know, we've worked with a really wide range of different sizes of nonprofits, different types of nonprofits, small, medium, large, you know, all the different nonprofit verticals. And so I think 2 great examples to kind of show you, one small one and one large one, are both the Orangutan Outreach and Save the Children. So starting with Orangutan Outreach as a use case, they're an organization who's been working with us for a bit over a year now. You know, they started accepting crypto with us, and they decided that NFTs was actually something they were really interested in and something they really wanted to spend a lot of time learning about, engaging with the community. And their team did a great job on social media. And in their first year, they ended up raising roughly $1 million in crypto and NFT related donations. I mean, this is an organization that their annual budget was only about $500,000 a year. So that changed their budget from $500,000 to $1.5 million. And you can imagine what kind of a transformation that was for that organization. I mean, they're able to do so much more work than they would have been able to without the help of the crypto and the NFT community. And one important thing to keep in mind with this is, like any other type of fundraising, this is very much one of those things where, it's one thing to accept, let's say crypto donations, but it's a whole other thing to fundraise them. And it's very much something where you need to put in the effort too. It's not just you just start accepting crypto and you just watch the money start pouring in. You do have to commit to doing some marketing and some fundraising work. And you have to make sure you know how to communicate with this donor demographic, because it really is a new donor demographic. You can't rely on, your direct mailings to get crypto donations, for example. So we see that, it's very much a kind of fundraising program where you get out of it what you put into it, right? So the organizations that are much more active on social media, they have a great digital presence. Those are the types of organizations that do the best when it comes to crypto and NFT philanthropy. The other case study, which is totally different, is Save the Children. They were actually one of our earliest clients, and as you all know, they're a huge organization. They were actually accepting crypto before they started working with us and before we were even around. They started accepting Bitcoin in, I think it was 2014. They were one of the first major international charities to start taking Bitcoin or any type of crypto donation. And towards the end of 2019, it was probably Q4 2019, they decided to switch over to work with us because they weren't getting a ton of traction when it came to crypto philanthropy and crypto fundraising. And they've seen a huge increase in the last couple of years working with us. And I think they've raised, $7 or $8 million in crypto donations now. I mean, it's been remarkable. And they've really spent a lot of time on thinking through the strategy with our team of, where are we going to go to find people that have crypto? How are we going to communicate with them? What events can we get involved in? Who can we partner with? They've got a really comprehensive strategy for how they've approached crypto fundraising. And that's honestly what we're here for. We're here to help nonprofits figure out that strategy and figure out how to approach this donor demographic. So those are two very different case studies that I think are helpful to kind of show the broad spectrum of how this can work for really any size nonprofit. Last thing I'll end on, and I want to leave time for questions, is some of the best practices. So when it comes to policies like your gift acceptance policy, this is something we get questions about, multiple times a day probably. The easiest way to explain a gift acceptance policy for crypto is what we've seen a lot of is a lot of people that are already taking stock donations for their nonprofit. They're basically copy and pasting their gift acceptance policy for stock or other property donations and updating it to say crypto. Because for a lot of organizations, they want to treat it just like they treat their other property donations, where they're automatically liquidating it. The reporting from the IRS perspective and everything like that is very, very similar since it's a non-cash contribution. So I would say for gift acceptance policy, you don't have to, reinvent the wheel. Work off of something you already have for your other non-cash gifts and keep it simple. And that kind of leads into this other best practice of the board education. That's going to get the board a lot more comfortable too when you compare it to other types of non-cash gifts and explain how things like the reporting is very, very similar to a stock donation because of that classification with the IRS as property. So for the board, I would say too, some things we've seen work really well is when you're talking to the board about this, make sure that you're talking about the success of other nonprofits. Help them understand that, you wouldn't be the first nonprofit to be taking crypto, right? This is happening. And sort of every day that you're not taking crypto, you're not really on the menu, right? So you're essentially missing out. And most places where we see boards get hung up is they'll say like, well, have we had anyone reach out wanting to donate crypto? And often the answer is no. Most donors, aren't going to take the time to stop and send an email and try to convince you to take crypto. They're probably just going to go somewhere else that's already taking it. So you need to be on the menu in the first place to be able to start to attract these donors. And what we're finding is so many of these donors are net new donors, so it's net new dollars to the organization. So many of these donors only donate crypto. So this isn't going to be cannibalizing your existing revenue stream. And even if it is an existing donor, they tend to give more. But in most cases, these really are net new donors. And especially because they're younger, they have so much of their net worth and their overall wealth stored in crypto. So all that to say, help them understand that, if you're not on the menu, you're essentially missing out. The last piece on this slide is the donor education side of it. I mean, more than anything, we try to educate both sides of the market, whether it's the donors or the nonprofits. And on the donor side, there's kind of two pieces to the education, or two primary pieces. One is the most simple part of just like making them aware that donating crypto is even an option, right? Like that doesn't even cross everyone's mind necessarily that they would donate crypto instead of something else. So that general awareness that yes, you can donate crypto, and yes, there's now quite a few nonprofits out there that you can donate crypto to. And by the way, if you choose to donate in crypto versus fiat or some other property, it's incredibly tax efficient. So there's a huge sort of, I guess, like tax literacy campaign that we're pushing on to help donors understand that tax efficiency. And for you all that are working at nonprofits, you probably already know that there's a huge tax advantage of donating appreciated property. So donating crypto from a tax perspective is very similar to donating stocks, where for the donor, they don't pay capital gains taxes, they get a fair market value deduction, and of course, as a tax exempt organization, you don't have to pay tax on it either. So for a lot of scenarios, that could be a 20 or 30% difference for both the donor and the nonprofit in terms of how much money they receive and how large the write-off is. So that's why really at the core of what we're doing on the donor side is trying to create this culture of giving. And it all starts with the educational component. So that's it for me on this piece, but happy to take questions at the end as well on these topics.
Yeah, Alex, we did have a question that came in, and I totally agree with you on the best practices. One of the best practices is to have a robust gift acceptance policy and call these things out so that when they do arrive, it's already been well thought through. One of the questions that came in was in regard to giving of appreciated cryptocurrency and the idea that maybe there needs to be an evaluation or an appraisal of the amount given. Can you touch on that? I know we're not here to give tax advice, but just kind of in general terms.
Yeah, in general, if you're in the US and you donate more than $5,000 worth of cryptocurrency, you have to get a qualified appraisal. And that's something we help as well. We can refer donors to qualified appraisers that we've worked with. And for the nonprofits, we actually have automations to pre-fill tax forms like 8282 and 8283, so that's as little work as possible for you as the organization.
That's great. And when you mentioned other nonprofits already accepting cryptocurrency, just locally here in San Diego, we know that the University of San Diego is accepting cryptocurrency donations. The Jewish Community Foundation, and as well as the North County Lifeline are just a few of the organizations that are already doing that, in addition to Make-A-Wish that I mentioned earlier. What would you say, Alex, is the biggest risk that a nonprofit needs to consider in accepting cryptocurrency?
Yeah, I would say, most of sort of the technical risks we've really eliminated. The risks would be the same risks as trying any other sort of new fundraising avenue, right? There's always a risk you try something new that you've never done before when it comes to fundraising, and you spend a bunch of time and money on it and it doesn't work out. There's always that risk. I mean, I think it's highly unlikely, and we've never seen it happen that, in theory, it's possible though that you decide to start working with us or someone else to start crypto fundraising, and you put a bunch of time and effort into it and you see 0 donations. That's always possible. That's always a risk, but it's, I think, a very small risk.
So in a sense, it's just like accepting other non-cash, non-financial assets, like maybe artwork or appreciated stock or land. It's really in the same component. And then maybe a question for the general group, a little bit broader. So we heard a lot about this is kind of the future. It's being driven by the millennial generation, those that are coming behind, which is a big chunk of the population. Are we seeing the older folks, the boomers, getting involved with this at all? Is there any information around that? I mean, other than yours truly.
I think over time, even though it's pretty dominant right now by younger demographics in terms of the donor side, I do think over time it'll normalize with the general kind of population age demographics as it becomes easier to use, more accessible. And I think we've already started to see that with, some of the larger Fortune 500 companies or even banks, right? Starting to get interested in cryptocurrency. So I think over time, this just becomes something that the average person has as part of their portfolio. And, it'll just become a normal way of giving. And, I think, I can't remember if someone mentioned this earlier, but, hopefully this is just commonplace. Everyone's taking crypto, right? Whether it's a nonprofit, a merchant, every investment platform offers it. I mean, that's, my kind of biased opinion is that's where we're headed though.
Yeah. And let's go to the next slide. And so you've learned a lot today, folks, from some esteemed experts in their fields, true subject matter experts on blockchain, Web3, cryptocurrency, how to accept it, the methodology, the process. And just from my own perspective, what I want to provide to you is just a quick update that PBO Advisory Group has a proven track record of helping nonprofits flourish. And our goal with this webinar was to lift all nonprofits through the benefit of receiving cryptocurrency donations. We're committed to the nonprofit sector, and as I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, we'll be making this recording available for those that have registered. And we're also developing a resource library that you can go to on our website to provide additional tools for you to learn about cryptocurrency, as well as some gift acceptance policy examples to help your nonprofit flourish. And so as we kind of wrap it up here, I just want to open it up to the audience with any questions they might have. I don't know if anybody looked at what Bitcoin was trading at this morning. It is quite volatile. It's not for the weak of heart, but I think we have to look past the ups and downs to the bigger picture of where we're going with this as a society and what role that's going to play. At the beginning, we asked the question, is it time to start taking cryptocurrency? And we're going to leave that up to you, but I hope that with the information that we've provided today, that will be helpful in you making that decision. So with that, are there any questions from the audience on what we've learned today, or maybe some other points to consider?
I've got a quick one while we're aggregating questions. Alex, what types of assets are you seeing charitable organizations receive mostly? Oh, you're on.
Yep, I was on mute. But yeah, I would say Bitcoin and Ether, certainly, the most popular. And after that, stable coins becoming surprisingly popular, especially USDC and DAI. And then we've started to see an increase in donations of Solana, some Luna, some Matic. But the kind of the three consistent ones are Bitcoin, Ether, and USDC. The rest is a bit more variable and sporadic.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Okay. I guess I would have a question for the audience and those that are tuning in. It's like, why have you not started already? Or where are you at in the process? And what blocks are you maybe running into, barriers that might be a hindrance for you? Are you dealing with some myths with your board? Your board thinks, oh, this is only gangsters doing this kind of stuff. Are you dealing with maybe executive directors that don't want to go that direction for whatever reason? What kinds of things might you be running into? And if anybody could pop into the chat, that'd be awesome. Have Alex and Nathan, have you run into any opposition kind of things that we didn't mention today that you see organizations struggling with?
I think we addressed most of it. I mean, the recurring thing we just always see, it's all about education is really what it comes down to. Once we have a chance to talk to someone and kind of do some basic education, go through some misconceptions and myths, there's usually not much resistance. But I think it's, just a matter of, for most people, right, crypto isn't really part of their everyday life yet, so they don't know a lot about it. And that's natural, right, for something like crypto that's new. So it's really just about learning a bit more, I would say, is the biggest thing.
Okay. Now I'm opening up my chat box. I can see some questions here. So hang on, folks. I got a couple questions coming. Here's a comment from a well-known consultant to nonprofits in the faith-based area. He says faith-based entities almost always lag on this kind of technology, especially if it had any type of a bad thing attached to it at its origin. I suppose that's just, you know, again, back to education and helping to overcome those things.
Yeah. So, I mean, we work with quite a few faith-based organizations. I mean, at this point, probably hundreds. And I mean, it's I think going to become pretty popular in the faith-based space, but I don't think you need to worry so much about the origin because, you know, like we talked about earlier, this is a bit of a misconception that, you know, crypto is somehow illicit. It's actually, you know, I think it was in one of the slides, 10 times more likely that your cash donors are donating illicit funds than your crypto donors because of the amount of volume of sort of illicit activity in the traditional economy is so much higher than in crypto. And something we offer on all of our products is we actually have a scan basically of all the incoming transactions to make sure they aren't coming from known illicit sources and making sure they are compliant with, you know, organizations like FinCEN and OFAC to make sure you're not taking donations that were, you know, in a stolen wallet or in a hack or tied to a sanctioned person or country. So we have those sorts of proactive checks in place too, as sort of a, you know, an extra layer of safety as well.
I do have another question here. Any suggestions on the best way for a localized nonprofit to get traction in the global environment?
Yeah, we've seen success with a lot of local causes actually. You know, our client base, there's quite a few local nonprofits, and it still ends up coming down to the same things about having a great online presence, really, and putting some time into strategizing this. I mean, there's certainly, I would say, depending on where you are, you know, of course, it's a little easier if you're in a big city because you're naturally going to have a lot of, you know, people around you in the area. But I would think about your positioning when you're trying to market this to a global audience, probably similar to how you're marketing it to a global audience with your other donation types of how does the work you're doing locally impact people more broadly, right? Even outside of that community. And if you can get that message across, I think that's how you can attract those people. And in some cases, it might just be that the type of work you're doing, even the donor might be in a different country, a different state, a different city, they might still care about that work. It's, you know, I think you'd be surprised by that.
Okay.
And if you wanted to reach the true crypto native or the individuals that hold, you know, the majority of their wealth in crypto, Twitter is probably the best social media application to reach them. Pretty much your crypto native people live on Twitter 24/7.
You know, I'm glad you mentioned that, Nathan. I was reading an article this morning on Coinbase about the recent acquisition of that media giant by a certain Texas resident named, what's his name? Mr. Musk, yeah. Anyway, and his kind of support, right? Tesla owns something like 1.3 billion in crypto. And so with his involvement with Twitter now, do you see that maybe expanding, that there could be a real benefit to the whole cryptocurrency movement with somebody that is a big advocate being involved with, again, a multimedia platform like Twitter?
I do. Crypto is already pushing the boundaries of, you know, free speech and what's right and wrong and allowed in the digital age. And now that Elon's purchased Twitter and already Twitter or crypto lives on Twitter, that's where the biggest debate about free speech in the world's happening at the moment on a consumer level. Mm-hmm. So I think, you know, Elon said he's not selling his crypto that he holds already. So in my opinion, you know, he may not integrate crypto into Twitter, but it'll certainly push the Web3 movement forward.
I've got okay, thank you. That I think it's just something to watch, right? I mean,
yes.
It's ever changing. I've got a question here from Blue, sorry, and it just, I'm going to ask Blue to kind of send me another question because it just says upskilling the team, and I'm not quite sure how to ask that. I'm going to go to another question while Blue's taking a rehash of that question. So a friend of mine, Ms. Sue Schaffner, who is the CFO for a well-known senior nonprofit here in San Diego, is asking, rightly so, right? We've learned a lot today about the benefits. We're concerned about cybersecurity ever so much lately, and with all the hacking and email attempts and all that, it's like, do we have any cybersecurity issues that we need to be aware of?
I mean, from my side, it's the same cybersecurity issues you would have with anything else that you're doing right now. In terms of your other fundraising platform, your bank accounts, your credit cards, things like that. I mean, it all comes down to your sort of your personal and your organizational kind of security. Crypto is no different. Most often actually, you might see a headline of, oh, Bitcoin got hacked or cryptocurrency got hacked. It's not actually the cryptocurrency getting hacked. It's someone, lost access because they shared their password with someone, right? Or they didn't store it in a secure way. It really comes down to personal and your organizational security more than anything else. But we do have quite a few security practices in place to make sure that you are protected in a way that you don't have to worry about anyone hacking your crypto account, your crypto balances, or anything like that. We've got a lot of layers of security in place. And in most cases, I would actually say the way we help nonprofits take crypto is actually more secure and you're at less risk than the way you're currently managing your bank account and other fundraising platforms.
So more secure, less risk. Sounds like a good internal control for the folks in that world. You're welcome, Sue. Anyway, so another question from the faith-based community. This is from a friend out in the desert at a church in Palm Springs, asking, the challenge for the faith-based community in our demographic is promotion of the gift opportunity properly. Any suggestions? And I think we kind of addressed that with the education piece, but is there anything else that might come into play?
I would say the easiest way of putting this is, think about how you market and fundraise from younger donors, and some of those things will apply to crypto donors as well. But ultimately, you really do need to think about this as a unique donor demographic. And that's why we've emphasized that so much, is because, like this question is saying, it is hard to market and fundraise to these people if you don't know how to do it. Most people aren't going to know how to do it, and I think it's really important you get the training on how to do it. And that's what our clients spend the majority of their time working on with our team, really.
Okay. I'm still waiting for Miss individual named Blue to get back with a question. So we got one more here, and I think then we'll be wrapping it up. So get your questions in, folks. We got just a few more minutes. If an organization, and here's the question for the entire group, if the organization might be open to learning about this even more, what would the next step be, and who's the best person to contact?
I mean, I am of course biased in this answer, but you can go to thegivingblock.com and sign up for a demo so that you can get kind of some one-on-one time with someone on our team to run through all the specifics of how you can get set up and how you can get started. That's certainly an easy way to to learn a bit more and get started. Okay,
great. Well, not seeing any more questions come in, just want to take this opportunity to thank you guys, everybody, for joining today. We hope that this has been informative, that you have gained more information, more knowledge to take your nonprofit to the next level and help it to flourish. Thank you for joining us, and please let us know how we can be of service to your nonprofit organization. Thanks so much, and have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye now.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.